You are listening to Proof of Love with Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on Proof of Love is intended as financial advice, legal advice, therapy, or really anything other than entertainment. Please take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're hearing us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on, or of any of the sponsors or affiliate products that you may hear about on the show. Now that that's squared away, let's start the show. Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Do you like cryptocurrency, politics, economics, activism, or art? Then check out The Tatiana Show, where you can learn all about it in a fun and non-intimidating way, as if you're just hanging with friends. Go to thetatianashow.com and listen now. Thank you to our sponsor, blocktap.io. Please go to their website and check out their universal cryptocurrency API to get reliable cryptocurrency data. blocktap.io. Welcome to Proof of Love, where you're about to get mired in Myers-Briggs. Yeah.
Myers-Briggs.
Oh, okay, fine. Welcome to Proof of Love, everybody. We're happy to have you with us today. And big surprise, we're going to talk about Myers-Briggs. Welcome to the show.
Hi, this is Stephanie Murphy here. I'm here with you, Tatiana, and we've also got our friend Lauren with us today. Hi, Lauren.
Hello, everybody. Are we ready to get Myers-Briggs?
Yes, I think we're ready. Now, what is Myers-Briggs? It's a type of personality test, and this was developed, I think maybe it was one of the earliest types of kind of mainstream personality tests. When was actually Myers-Briggs created?
1945, and it was
Okay.
also used to help. So I actually just watched a video about this, and I never remember history about anything, so it's about 5 minutes old. This is what happened. In around 1912, Carl Jung came up with 8 different personality types, and as a caveat, he wrote, but everybody is an exception to this rule. These are just some general ones. And then in 1945, the Briggses, which was a mother and a daughter, I guess, they decided to make the test, and they did it with 16 personality types, even though they weren't actual psychologists or anything like that. So, you know, and one of the things that I saw in the video was that it was used to get women into the workforce. And then all of a sudden I started thinking, well, who else is behind this Myers-Briggs?
Yeah,
because I don't really know about this whole working thing. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. I mean, that's one of the things you hear a lot whenever anyone talks about Myers-Briggs personality testing is that, one, the criticism is that, oh, well, this was invented by a mother and a daughter, and they're not even scientists. Okay, first of all, in the 1940s, was it even really possible for even like a very smart woman to go and get a PhD in psychology? No, there were a lot of barriers to that, right? And second of all, was Carl Jung really a psychologist? Like, yes, he was.
Right.
Was the science of psychology really that developed? We were like back in the anal stage with Sigmund Freud back then. And Jung and Freud kind of worked together. So, like, take that with a grain of salt. I really think, and this is just maybe a rant from me, so, you know, take it as you will, but I really think that people are prejudiced against the Myers-Briggs personality test because it was invented by 2 women.
Yeah.
Oh, we're really getting into it right away. Okay.
I can see that. And I think it's the whole thing is really ironic because when I first took the test for myself, I could not believe how accurate it was. I've probably taken it 6-7 times over the past 10, 15 years. Every single time, it's the same type. It doesn't matter where I'm at in my life, what I'm doing with my career. Even if I try to answer the question slightly differently, just to see, I am the same type. I am firmly what I am. And it answers a lot of questions about myself and things that I thought were kind of interesting and contradictory about me. I find it really helpful. I love the test.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I was first introduced to this when I was a teenager, and I took the test and I got a certain type. And then later in my life, much later, even just in the last couple of years, I took it again and I got that same type. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is cool that there's at least some consistency there. That's giving it a little bit of credibility.
Yeah.
And, I know that people kind of critique it and say, well, it's not the end all be all of personality test. Isn't this kind of deterministic? Isn't this saying that you're a certain way and you can't change? No, it's really not saying that. It's just saying that maybe this is a little insight into how your brain is wired, and any tool that can help you know yourself better, I think is a win. I think that's a positive thing. And you don't have to take it as this is determining your entire future and who you should be in a relationship with and what career you should choose and whatever. It's just an additional tool for self-knowledge, and I don't think that could be a bad thing.
I agree. Do we want to talk a little bit about the different types? Do we want to share our types?
I want to
Yes, we do. But first, we want to give an introduction to these 4 axes of the personality test.
Yes.
And I want to hear Tatiana's perspective as someone who is, I think I was telling Tatiana about the Myers-Briggs personality test, and I was asking her, ooh, are you this type? Because I think you are. And then she was blowing me off for like a year. She was like, I don't want to take this test. This is kind of dumb. And I was like, oh my God, that's such an ENFP thing to do. And then she took it finally. And then she finally took it. And she's like, wow, I did get that type that you said. So Tatiana, tell us the skeptical perspective.
I don't know how I've become the skeptic on this show, but holy cannoli, are you guys into this Myers-Briggs thing? I am. Okay, so one of the things that they identified in the skepticism around it is that none of the Myers-Briggs are like, you're a mean person, you're a jerk, you're late and don't care about others. I mean, they're all very positive things. So what they said, it was a phenomenon similar to what happens with fortune telling and astrology. I'm Lauren. So people basically believe it because it's very broad language and it's language that flatters people. That being said, I don't think
their ego.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think it's completely out of there, but I don't know if I would put too much stock into it. But I'd love to get into what it is. So I'm an ENFP. Are you guys going to say yours, or are these like secret?
No, we can say our personality types.
Okay.
My type is INTJ.
I am INFJ.
Okay, girls. So do you want to each describe what that means, or do we want to describe the different points between the personality types alone? Like, I feel like
I think we should first talk about the 4 letters, right?
Okay.
And what people might notice if they're not familiar with this at all, what people might first notice is that we're saying my type is this, and then we say 4 letters, and it's like an alphabet soup, and what the heck are we talking about, right? Okay, so the 4 letters represent different dichotomies, I guess, of aspects of personality. So the first one is either E or I, and it stands for extroversion and introversion. Now, this is probably the least controversial aspect of this personality test, or maybe even any personality test, because a lot of people can identify with either extroversion or introversion, right? There's just some people, like Tatiana, who are very friendly and outgoing, and it seems like they get energy, they get life from being at a party or from talking to people. And they can just kind of talk to anybody, and they say what's on their mind. It's an open book. They're honest about what's going on inside of them and what are their feelings, and they can't really think about being any other way, right? But some people are different than that. Some people really feel kind of drained after going to a party, right? They might like to go to a party, but afterwards they're like, ooh, I need to recover from that with some alone time. I need to curl up with a book. They might not get back to your text messages right away, and you might not understand why. They might need a little more time to themselves, and you're like, what are they doing when they're alone? Well, they're recharging their introverted batteries, right?
Yeah.
They might seem a little more complicated on the outside because you don't always know what's going on with them because they don't volunteer that information. They don't readily say what's going on inside of them. And introverts can sort of act like extroverts sometimes, but they always need that core action, I guess, of recharging their batteries with alone time. So that's how you tell if you're an introvert or an extrovert. Extroverts basically get life. They get energy from being around other people, and they say what's on their mind. They say their feelings. They say their thoughts. They put it out there. There's no mystery with them. Introverts, a little bit more mysterious, and they feel drained when they're around people. They need to recharge their batteries after social situations. You know, they might like interacting with certain people, but they tend to be a little bit less socially outgoing, and some of them are quite extreme, and they need a lot of alone time. Lauren, would you say that's accurate? How did I do?
No, I think that is absolutely perfect. And it really ties into the next set on the 4 letters.
Mm-hmm. So the next letter is sensing versus intuitive. Now, and on the Myers-Briggs, this is S or N, because I was already taken for introvert. So you can't have I for intuitive and I for introvert. So it's sensing or intuitive. And this is a little bit less straightforward. Like, what does this actually mean? Well, Lauren, did you want to talk about that, or do you want me to talk about it?
I would love for you to talk about it because you are so eloquent.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So the difference between S types and N types, first of all, S types are much more common in the general population than N types are. S types tend to be much more in the present moment. They like things like sports. They notice what's around in the environment. They're kind of looking around and sensing stuff. And they're better at getting out of their own head and being in the present moment. N types it's called intuitive. They're kind of the type that tends to maybe wander around daydreaming a little bit more often. They tend maybe not even to notice their surroundings sometimes. They can get really focused on what's going on inside their own head, whether that's focusing on the future or focusing on the past, perhaps. But it's a little bit more difficult for them to be in the present moment. And S types, going back to the sensing types, the S types, which is more common in the general population, they can tend to be more like kind of salt of the earth people that are just, it's easy for them to kind of fit in with society. N types, on the other hand, intuitive types, can be a little bit weird, I guess, or they can have a little more trouble fitting in. They just march to the beat of a different drum. And I think if you look at the breakdown of population studies on American people, I think, and I don't know if this is true worldwide, but the studies, at least in American populations, about 75% of people are S types and 25% are N types. So N types are actually rarer, but N types are more likely to take a test like Myers-Briggs.
Exactly.
And so sometimes somebody will post something online. I had this experience where I was posting something on social media once. Oh, what is your Myers-Briggs type? And everybody was saying something N. Everyone was an N type. I had only like one S type. And I was like, I guess the S types are a lot less common. But no, it was just like, this is who takes the tests. And so the results can be biased. And also me as an N type who kind of like is a little weird and marches to the beat of my own drum, I'm attracting other types like that. My friends are also types who are very intuitive, right?
Yeah. All 3 of us are.
Yeah. Yes, all 3 of us are N types. So, and this is not to say like, there's nothing bad about being one type or another. There's nothing better about being extroverted than introverted or vice versa. And there's nothing better about being an S type or an N type. They're neutral. They just have their own kind of qualities and they have their own flavor that makes you a unique type of person. Lauren, how did I do on the second letter?
That is all perfect. And I can't wait to discuss my type because a lot of this ties in. I love that you brought up people taking the tests.
Yeah.
I see that a lot with, especially with the N versus the S.
Right. Okay. So the next letter is T or F, which stands for thinking or feeling. And this is a big one that people get, I think, confused on, or it has some connotations. This is not saying that if you're a T type, if you're a thinking type, this is not saying that you have no feelings or that you're terrible with feelings or something like that. And if you're an F type, this is not saying that you're so emotional that you can't think logically or you can't think straight. It's not that at all. It's more about how do you make decisions? What is the most important thing? F types, feeling types, tend to make decisions based on how will this affect how I fit in with my social circle? They're considering these things when they're making decisions. Does this fit in with my sense of morality? Is this right or wrong? That's a really important thing for a lot of F types, is like this strong sense of morality. Whereas a T type, a thinking type, might make decisions based on, does this make sense? Does this fit into a bigger picture that I can understand, like a map of meaning that I use to understand the world. So it's more like that. And then some types can be a little more extreme, right? Where they're kind of like out of balance and they're they're relying a lot more on the thinking thought processes or on the feeling thought processes. But everybody has thoughts and feelings, right? We're all human beings. 40% at least of our brains, no matter who we are or what type of personality we are devoted to processing emotions. So feelings are important for everybody, and everybody has them. Everybody has them, excuse me. But the T and the F is just more about like sort of how do you choose things? How do you make decisions? What is your thought process when you're deciding what to do?
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
This is beautiful. You're doing such an amazing job with it.
It's because she loves Myers-Briggs and she's been waiting for this moment her whole life.
No, I haven't been waiting for it my whole life. Actually, I was not even interested in Myers-Briggs until quite recently, like just a couple of years ago. And I actually think it was really helpful for improving my self-knowledge. And I got a lot out of it. I got into Myers-Briggs because I was actually posting kind of a skeptical thing about it on Facebook. I was sharing this cartoon about different types of introverts and a funny little thing that describes these introverted personality types. And I was saying, do you guys believe in Myers-Briggs, or is this just kind of like astrology for nerds, which I had heard before? And this lovely woman, Tammy, I want to give her credit, took the time to comment on my post and send me some resources that I could read about Myers-Briggs. And when I did, I was like, wow, this is actually quite valuable. And then I was saying, like, this is not astrology for nerds. This is different. And so then I was reading more about my type and some of the types of my partners and past partners and things like that. And this was really helping me get a framework for understanding myself better and for also understanding some other people better. So that's how I got into Myers-Briggs, and it was quite recent.
Okay, so what's the last letter? Fair enough.
Okay, so the last letter is Isabel and, I'm sorry, the other one's name I forgot, but this is what the inventors of Myers-Briggs, or the discoverers of Myers-Briggs, added to Carl Jung's work. And this is a category called judging versus perceiving. And so the letter is either J for judging or P for perceiving. And now, again, if you have a J letter in your type, this does not mean that you're automatically a judgmental person or something like that. And what even does P mean? Is that perceiving? What is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, judging types, J types, tend to be a little bit more on the planner side of things. They like to plan things out. They like to finish projects. They like to, close up a chapter before they move on to the next thing. P types are a little bit more go with the flow, more spontaneous, and they're notorious for having trouble finishing something when they've started it. And so they often have a bunch of started projects that they just haven't finished because they get distracted by something else. And let's see, I think that's probably the main difference. But Lauren, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes. When I think of judging versus perceiving, I often think of people who have the J, which is myself. We're kind of task oriented. We really like to have things lined up. So hypothetically, let's say there's a deadline. Somebody who has the J tends to plan before that deadline and have something completed and know it's going to be completed. And that gives them a sense of peace. Whereas somebody who has the P tends to prefer to kind of work fast towards a deadline. So maybe there isn't all of that planning, and they're almost like getting that excitement from knowing that they have to do it for the deadline. Maybe they don't finish. Maybe the judging person doesn't finish. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of how they approach a deadline. And it's that planning versus that spontaneity, kind of across the board.
Or procrastinator. I feel like I definitely am in that second section. Not that I'm a procrastinator, but maybe I am, and I'm just not happy about how that sounds coming out of my mouth.
Well, everybody procrastinates sometimes, even if they're a J type. So, we can all struggle with that for sure.
Yeah. And I sometimes think one of the downsides for judging for me is sometimes you're so hyper-focused on the tasks and the details that you're missing that new information that comes in. Whereas maybe one of the downsides of the perceiving is that you're working in these like incredible bursts of energy and you're getting the new information, but you're missing the smaller details. So it's a little bit of like a small picture versus big picture kind of way of looking at things.
Right. Okay. So now we've gone through the 4 letters of the Myers-Briggs personality type. So we can say our types again and, explain a little more. Mine is INTJ, so introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging. And Lauren, INFJ, so
I
introverted,
Yep.
intuitive,
Feeling.
feeling, and judging. And Tatiana is ENFP, extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving. So we have a kind of a broad representation of all these different, we don't have an S type on the show, but maybe we will soon. But it doesn't stop there. They're not just these 4 letters. Apparently, these 4 letters come together in such a way that they create these things called cognitive functions. And this is something that isn't often talked about with the Myers-Briggs, but the cognitive functions are even more important than the letters. And if you want to see what cognitive functions your type is using, I'm going to send you girls some show notes that links to my favorite Myers-Briggs test, and then also a website that shows you more about the cognitive functions. And I think this will be really helpful for people to take the test and then read more about their type and their cognitive functions. But these are basically like, how does your mind work? Like, what are your thought processes? What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Because you end up with 4 cognitive functions. The top 2 are like what you're really good at. They're solid skills. And then the bottom 2 are like the things that sometimes you have trouble with, especially when you're younger, and that may manifest in ways that are kind of out of balance or unconscious motivations or something like that until you get a handle on them once you get older. So these are like really useful. And just as an example, Lauren's type and my type both have the top cognitive function called introverted intuition, which is kind of like famous for being like a fortune teller with a crystal ball. Like we can get really focused on the future and we're thinking about things and trying to fit them into a framework that makes sense and then use that to make future predictions, right?
And then I go to you guys and I ask you guys for the predictions.
Right. Well, you actually have this function in your stack too, Tatiana, and it's in the bottom 2, I think. So your type tends to actually be attracted to my type and Lauren's type as like for friendship and business relationships and other types of relationships, because you see that cognitive function mirrored in us and you think, oh, I have something in common with this person. Don't really, maybe not quite aware of what it is, but there's something that's drawing you to this type of person. So we're going to show you in the show notes, we're going to give you a test to take, and then we're going to give you more information about the cognitive functions. And so this is very important. But I just want to make sure that I know we're kind of short on time today, so I just want to make sure that we're getting more into this and that we're not getting hung up too much on the details.
Yes. This is great. Who would like to go first with their type and kind of talking about it a little bit and how it relates to the greater world?
Well, I don't know anything about my type, so.
Okay, so we're going to have to talk about it.
I'm extroverted. I says I'm the campaigner. That's all I know.
I would love to go first because if that's okay with you guys.
No, yeah, go for it, of course.
Because it has answered a lot of questions for me in my life. And as people know more about Myers-Briggs or feel more comfortable, hear it more often, and I say my type, and Stephanie, I think you probably had this reaction. They're like, oh, okay. And
that makes sense.
That makes sense.
That explains a lot, right?
Yes. So I don't know how relatable this will be to the general listenership, viewership, but just because my type is very, very rare, we're considered the rarest type, and I believe
You're
it's
like a special unicorn. And my type is also quite rare too, especially for women.
Exactly.
Rare. Damn it.
Well, it's my sign is kind of known as the walking contradiction of the Myers-Briggs, and we make up less than 1% of the population, and it's known as the advocate. That's kind of sometimes the diplomat, but usually the advocate. And basically, I can give you some ideas just by telling you some famous people who are INFJs, to maybe not to put myself in the category with these people, but just to give you a little broad view. Oprah is an INFJ, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King. So there are a lot of big names who are known for their humanitarian work. And a lot of INFJs really feel that their place in the world is helping others. So while it's a beautiful thing, and INFJs are one of those rare kind of dreamer signs who can also take their dreams and actually put them into action, we're also the kind of sign who really forgets to take care of ourselves. And we're so hyper-focused on making the world a better place and connecting with people, which is also something that's very interesting with an INFJ. And quite a few signs have this dichotomy within them that you're an introverted sign, but you may come off as an extroverted person.
Yeah, because you're concerned with the world and other people's feelings. There's this cognitive function in your stack called extroverted feeling, which means that you're very aware of other people's feelings. And you also have this strong sense of right and wrong and a sense of morality. And so you're considering the way other people feel in your decisions. And that can be very distracting from what do you want to do? And
Exactly. And as a kind of quiet type, we're also the type that is very warm and open. So there's a lot of, misinformation about introverts, that introverts are these quiet types that lock themselves in the room and don't talk to anybody. Many introverts are very warm, very welcoming, very friendly, as you can see with me and with Stephanie. And my fiance is as well an introvert. But there's this really interesting thing where we do need that time to recharge from being with other people, but we also really enjoy talking to other people and understanding them. There's this amazing meme that I actually just saw the other day, and it's the I see dead people thing from Sixth Sense, that famous, I see dead people. Somebody created a meme with Haley Joel Osment, and it just says on the top, it's INFJ, and it just says I ... C ... narcissists. And a lot of INFJs, what we really love, what really gives us joy is pulling back the mask of other people and understanding who they are. So I think this is the case with a lot of INs, that we tend to see deeper and we tend to look deeper almost right away. So it's also not the best thing all the time too, because I've found myself being the kind of person that's like, no, don't you see? They're nasty. They don't mean you well. But other people will maybe look at them and be like, but they're so charming and charismatic. And I don't understand why you have this gut instinct that they're not a good person. And it's hard to explain, but 9 out of 10 times I'm right about it. It's not about being psychic. It's just about seeing the little ticks, seeing the little things that they're doing. And that's definitely a part of the INFJ personality. And
really good at reading people and then making future prognostications based on this.
Exactly. And so one of the things I've struggled with is that I am a very friendly and social person. I love talking to people. I may be quiet and I may not be immediately that person that's like, hey, nice to meet you. But once I'm talking about something that I'm comfortable with, I'm very passionate about it and I get really into it, and I love to hear other people's opinions and bounce them off of my own. And that's definitely a strong INFJ quality. That being said, because of that, throughout my life, a lot of people have not understood when I needed to retreat and recharge my batteries, because they're like, but you're so social and you make friends so easily and you love talking to people. And are you mad at me? Why aren't you calling me back? And it's none of those things. I've heard that a lot of INFJs are considered by other people as extroverted introverts or ambiverts. There's sometimes that kind of thought about them. But I do need that time to recharge, and I need that time to think.
And that's what makes you still an introvert, even if you sometimes seem extroverted or you're more social than some other introverts they know. At the core, you still need that time to recharge. You're still an introvert.
Exactly. And so there's so much more about the type, but that's basically my type. We want to fight to make the world a better place and be humanitarians and do all those kind of things. I think of Nelson Mandela as a very strong INFJ type personality, and then Oprah as well, because she is so warm and lovely and people want to be around her. But I was not surprised to find out that she is an introvert in any way, shape, or form.
I don't think you should ever try and liken yourself to Nelson Mandela.
No, not
okay, no, because Nelson Mandela has a lot of blood on his hands. He was actually quite a brutal guy, even from prison. His wife put a tire on a teenage boy's head and lit it on fire around his neck. I mean, not to go off into the I just heard that title.
Well,
That's the other
I was
one.
going to say this, like, why do they ever say like, oh, these are the famous killers that have your personality type, right?
Yeah, right.
Everyone's like, oh,
They
my
actually,
like Oprah. Everybody wants to be Oprah, but
no, they're
Ted Bundy.
actually, there's so many humanitarians, but there are also quite a few people that I am like, oh God, they're my type too. Mel Gibson is an INFJ.
Oh,
Mel
wow.
Gibson is
Okay.
a terrible human being. But I would like to add in, as we finish up, one of the big things about INFJs is that we are very, very sensitive. Very sensitive. So this ties in immediately, like my heart hurt. I was like, no, I'm not trying to compare myself to a humanitarian. No, that hurts my feelings. Why would you say that?
No. I was just saying that he's not a good humanitarian. That was more my point. You can compare yourself to Mother Teresa all day. I love you.
But that's a trait of an INFJ. A lot of people don't realize that we're not hypersensitive in the sense that you would think, but we care that people see us clearly or understand our intentions clearly. So I think that's actually a really good example of an INFJ reaction that I just had. Instead of getting angry, I was like, oh no, do you think I'm trying to compare myself to Mother Teresa? No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean.
Right.
And that's a very strong INFJ quality.
Yep.
So,
Constantly being misunderstood and
yes.
worrying that people are mad at you.
Yes, it really is. The misunderstand, the walking contradiction was the best way to describe it. When I heard that, I was like, yes, that's exactly it. So,
right. Okay. So let's move on and talk about some of the other types on here on the show. I'm just going to give a little summary, but my type is INTJ. There's stereotypes about INTJ that we are like a Sherlock Holmes kind of type, or like a kind of like an evil mastermind that's working to understand how systems work and then devising plots and plans to kind of get, to get what we want or something like that. And the stereotype of an INTJ is like a nerdy scientist or a nerdy engineer that's like really introverted and not very social, kind of as a jerk. Like House MD would be a great example of a fictional character who's an INTJ. Like people kind of wonder if they're maybe even a little bit on the spectrum or something, right? Because they seem just so introverted and sometimes very difficult to connect with. But that's a stereotype of INTJs, right? But INTJs actually have quite deep feelings, and we understand our feelings and we feel them very deeply. But think of it as almost like a turtle with a shell, like a protective shell around it. Inside, it's a ball of mush. It's kind of vulnerable. There's a lot of feelings in there, but there's a really thick shell around the edges, and we can just pull our head in and pull our arms in whenever we want to protect ourselves and not come out until we feel it's safe. So yeah, I think there's a lot of these types in the sciences, in engineering, maybe in cryptocurrency. I think this is very relevant for a lot of people out there.
Definitely.
These are the engineers, the builders, the coders, the people who are masterminding behind the scenes. Like, they often don't get credit, but they are behind some of the most brilliant ideas out there. And they don't want credit. They actually don't want to be in the spotlight. They just want to work on a cool project and figure out, to learn, to understand how systems work. And this cognitive function of introverted intuition with INTJs is used to create maps of meaning, to observe things, kind of like a scientist, and then figure out, how does this all fit together? How can I create a map of understanding the world that even allows me to make predictions about the future? And this thinking cognitive function and the J at the end, sometimes INTJs are known as debaters, or they can have kind of a sharp tongue. They can say something that's really cutting and biting or efficient, especially when they want to end the conversation as soon as possible. They're known for doing this thing called the door slam, where they just decide they've had enough of somebody and they just completely cut them out.
Yeah.
And some other types do that too, but this is also an INTJ thing. But inside, when you really get to know them, if they really start to trust you and open up to you, they can be just a wonderful, loyal friend and a very interesting, a fascinating type of personality in person. And
I love INTJs. I'm partial to you guys.
Some people fetishize them. The women.
I know. My fiance is an INTJ, and because you guys are so
Cheers,
similar.
fiance. From one INTJ to the other.
you're so similar to INFJs in a lot of ways that we understand you guys, but so different in other ways, in a way that I think is very, at least for me particularly, is very exciting for me. The whole kind of alternate way of thinking about things and figuring out things in a whole different capacity. It's really exciting. I mean, you brought up House MD, which is so hilarious because that is the perfect INTJ. Yeah. And when I was looking up fictional characters for INFJ, his other doctor partner that they butt heads but love each other so much is Wilson, Dr. Wilson, and he's considered an INFJ. So I thought that was just a really funny little anecdote.
Yeah, example of that type of relationship, totally. Yeah, and the INTJs can kind of get stuck in their heads a lot too, because we're thinking a lot, but we're not saying a lot. There's a lot going on beneath the surface, and this is totally me. Like, this is very helpful for understanding me. And I guess some of the things that helped me when I learned more about Myers-Briggs and I started getting into this type a little bit more, I actually joined this group on Facebook that was a group of just all INTJ women, and it was called like INTJ sorority or something. And, sometimes this type, like, they have trouble connecting with other women because they're just different. They're kind of like marching to the beat of a different drum. And that was definitely my experience as I was growing up as a child, especially. And so seeing these other women that were so similar to me was really validating and empowering. And it kind of gave me permission to just be a bitch sometimes. This was great. Well, I can't help it. It's my personality type,
Underneath that bitchiness with INTJs, there's such a kindness. That's the thing. There's such a innate sense of kindness and care, which is also what makes that type so very appealing.
Yeah. And there's also this dark sense of humor, right? And this brings me to Tatiana's type, which is ENFP. And so I guessed that Tatiana was an ENFP before she took the test. And then she took it and she was like, I think I got that thing that you said I was. And even though she was very skeptical. And the reason I guessed this was because, Tatiana's like my best friend, and we are drawn to each other. And it's almost like sometimes it's a little bit of an opposites attract kind of thing, because she's very extroverted. She helps draw me out of my shell. Sometimes there are things that I really want to talk about, but I'm not even aware that I need to talk about it. And she's just there like, hey, what's going on? Tell me about this. She's just asking me questions. And it really helps pull me out of that turtle shell and get me to talk about things that I really need to talk about. And also, we both kind of share this dark sense of humor that is really funny. And we're constantly texting each other these very dark jokes sometimes. And we're both laughing at them and we both understand. And it's one of those things where I could only make this joke with you because nobody else would get it. So this type ENFP is known for being extroverted, sparkly, and also having a very strong sense of justice and right and wrong. Yes. And so I think this describes Tatiana very well. She is putting herself out there. She's very charming and personable. I think she can talk to anybody, which I'm constantly amazed by. But also she's really interested in right and wrong. She made this whole album that's all about ending the drug war and, improving society. And she's got these standards in her music career that's saying, no, I'm not going to sell out. I'm not going to do what these pop stars do and sell my soul to try to make, a bunch of money. I'm going to do what feels right for me. And I really admire that.
Me too.
Well, thanks, girls. But I will say this. I don't know if I feel that extroverted because, first of all, while y'all are talking, I'm thinking, yeah, this could describe a lot of people's personalities, but also, people think I'm so extroverted, but that's not true. I like to be alone a lot. And if I get around people for too long, I want to murder everybody. And if I'm around a lot of loud music and in a crowded bar and I'm not in the mood for it, I go crazy and become extremely bitchy. So, I don't know if I love it that much. What is
right? Well, that's actually
say about that.
It's funny that you say that because your type ENFP is famous for being very open-minded and being willing to consider new ideas, but also being really good at thinking of kind of point counterpoint, right? If somebody says something, they're like, I don't know about that. Can we consider the other side? And you're really good at holding space for different ideas at the same time, different kind of conflicting ideas sometimes.
That's very true. Although I hope I'm not a contrarian, because those people are the worst.
No, you're not a contrarian. You're just
Thank
very
God.
open-minded, and you are willing to listen to people. And I think sometimes maybe it's even frustrating because not everybody is like that. And sometimes people are just not open-minded, and you're willing to listen to their side of things, but you also want them to reciprocate and listen to your perspective on things and be just as open-minded as you are. And that can get really frustrating.
That's true. So
And
what's the deal with my inversion extroversion? Because like I said, I really don't always like to be around people. And also I noticed that sometimes, and this may just be crypto burnout, but when I go to a crypto conference, I don't know, lately I just want to hang with my friends in a little corner, like a clique, and have only select people come over. So I don't have to get overwhelmed by a large amount of people. Yeah, I think that's how I feel.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think these modern environments, especially conferences, can sometimes be overwhelming for anybody, no matter what their personality type is. But I noticed that you're saying you're still hanging with your friends. And
yeah,
one thing that I noticed sometimes when we've gone to conferences together, sometimes I'll stay in my room for like a few hours in the morning. And Tatiana will be like, "What are you doing? Why are you in there? Come out and have some coffee."
It's totally true.
well,
Yeah.
I was thinking about you with the extroversion thing because I think extroversion is very, it's a quality that's very admired in American culture. I think it's only these days that being an introvert is getting more attention
Mhm.
and not considered like a shy dork in the corner. There's more knowledge about it. But I think to counter what you said, you're able to do things I think that most introverts would rather crawl in a hole and not see anybody for a year to do. You can go away for 3 weeks at a time for back-to-back conferences. That is
Yeah.
totally an extrovert thing. It's you get exhausted at the end because you're human and you need to recharge. But I would say someone like me or Stephanie, after 3 days, we'd be like, oh my God, I need to go home and not answer my phone for
Yeah.
4 days.
I would be figuring out how to rearrange the schedule so I can just cancel everything and go
Yes.
home after 2 days.
Yes, it's
Well,
so true. And you have the capacity to do it and to do it well. And that's I admire that. I mean, I could
Yeah,
do
me
it in
too.
small
Sometimes I feel jealous, honestly. It's great.
yeah, I could do it in small bursts, sure, and be on it and like, yeah, I got this. And then I'm like, oh God, I gotta go home. Like it's time. And you're good. You can really hang and be social and be on the ball without even having to try for way longer than almost anybody I know. I think that's an amazing quality.
well, I want to thank you guys. You guys just gave me a bunch of compliments. I'm slightly awkward. But do you think that other people that are also extroverted would have a hard time regulating what that point is where they get sick of it? Something I noticed just now that I said was, okay, if I'm at a conference, I'm going to go and just hide in the corner with my friends, with other people, right? So I'm
Yes.
still being extroverted. I just want my own little crowd. So I don't know.
Yes, you just want to be in control of the people who are there.
Yeah, I want a quality control. What about our listeners? I wonder what everybody is. Is there a type that's very traditional for example, a tech audience or anything like that?
Yeah, I would guess that there might be a lot of INTJs in the audience. Maybe I'm biased because I am one, but these are the types, like engineering types, that tend to be attracted to STEM fields like
Yes.
technology and also sometimes finance and just understanding kind of intricate systems like that, right? Also in medicine and anything that where there's like problem solving. INTJs cannot resist that. But also, I would guess, the most common personality type by percentages, I believe, for women is ISFJ. And for men, it's different. Okay, so yep, ISFJ is the most common, followed by ESFJ. And this is where it gets really interesting because we can understand sort of how the world works by the breakdowns. These two types, ISFJ and ESFJ, are very common, and these are guardians of the status quo. These are traditionalists. These are people who are really holding down the fort, and they're caring about their families, and they're making sure that everything works in society and functions smoothly. And then we can start to see how when we talk about social changes or something like that, it's these it's these weird types at the bottom of the percentages, like Lauren, like INFJ, that are kind of trying to push the status quo, but there's not many people like her. So it can be difficult sometimes getting these traditional kind of people on board, the people who really don't really like to change that much, or they don't want anything to change. So I think this is really useful in understanding sort of dynamics in large populations of people. And it's also really useful in understanding yourself, right? This could explain why you always felt like you were kind of a weirdo and nobody understood you. This could explain why your parents maybe didn't get you so much. Maybe your parents were S types and you're an N type or something like that. Not saying this from personal experience. But, this could explain why you feel worn out by 3 weeks of conferences when your colleagues seem to be fine with it in sales because they're all extroverts and you're an introvert. This could explain why people have said you have a resting bitch face. Also not from personal experience. So I just like it because I think it's, you don't need to take it too seriously, but it's a tool that you can use to help understand yourself and other people better.
Exactly. And we all work together. I feel like I probably have really close friends in every one of these types. And I think every type has its positive and negative attributes. It's just understanding yourself more, understanding the people around you more, and how to better relate and how to make yourself happier and make those around you happier, which is such an INFJ thing to say. I just realized it as I'm saying.
And this isn't a prison sentence either. Like you are not bound to the positive or negative aspects of your type. Every type, every person in general can become more well-rounded, especially as they're getting older and learning more about themselves. But Myers-Briggs and other things like it are tools to learn more about yourself and therefore become more aware and more well-rounded. So you're going to find balance, right? You're going to become a more well-rounded person. And then those negative tendencies or whatever are going to round out and balance out as you learn more about yourself.
Exactly. Beautifully said.
I like usual. It. Ladies, we have to wrap because we're basically up against the hour, but what about love affairs in Myers-Briggs? I mean, real quick, are there any kinds of, this is a love show.
Oh, this is a great
type
question.
Go out after a different type? I mean, how does that play out?
Oh, I would love
the most important one.
Well, I know for my type, one of the big things that we're known about is that not that we don't want to settle. I hate that word settle, but it's that we're looking for our quote unquote soulmate. And INFJs are not willing to settle with a person who's great, but maybe not that perfect match, which explains why I was single for such a long time after my relationship. I met lots of great guys, but I didn't feel that like, this is a person that gets me. So for my type, we need somebody that really sees us and understands us, and
which
we're willing
can be difficult because you feel like a weird alien sometimes, and you think nobody gets you.
Which is why I don't have. It's not a surprise in any way, shape, or form that I'm marrying an INTJ because we're different, but we get each other in such an innate way. So
sharing those cognitive functions.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say that any type can be compatible with any other type. There is no exclusions when it comes to dating in Myers-Briggs. Any type could potentially be compatible with any other type, but it always helps when you understand your partner better and how they think. Right? This can only help in communication, and knowing more about someone's personality type can help explain differences, right? Like, for example, introvert and extrovert is often a common match because it's like an opposites attract thing, right? One partner's way more extroverted and more social. The other one's more kind of in themselves and they prefer to kind of keep it quiet and keep personal stuff close to their chest. These types can attract each other and they can also balance each other out, but they can also potentially have difficulty understanding each other because the extrovert's like, why are you staying in your room? I don't get it. Why don't you say what you feel? Why don't you say what's on your mind? I do. Is it that difficult, right? Why don't you text me? Right? And so understanding each other can really help with that. There are some types that are famously kind of like good matches and that are more compatible with each other. We mentioned INTJ and INFJ. We also mentioned INTJ and ENFP.
Wait, who's that one? That's what I'm wondering about.
That's you and me. That's you and me.
Well, it's about time. I've been waiting for this moment, Stephanie.
Well, you're looking for a husband, so you need to find a guy who's an INTJ, which shouldn't be too hard. And then you're going to like adopt him like this sparkly unicorn that's just hugging this thing, and he's going to be like, don't squeeze me too hard. There's like this cartoon, that ENFPs are so bouncy and shiny and happy, like a sparkly unicorn, and INTJs are like this black goth kind of bat creature, like with a frown on their face. But then they allow the ENFP to adopt them and to love them, to shower them with love. So maybe a match like that would work. But ultimately, like we said, any type is compatible with any other type. Maybe you have a past partner who you really clicked with, and you're looking for more people of their type. So you could reach out to them and ask what their type is. It's common on dating sites to see this, right? Like on OkCupid especially, or sometimes maybe Tinder. I don't know. Maybe not Tinder because nobody reads the profiles. But on OkCupid, you'll see people say, well, I'm this type. And if you're this type, I really like this other type. And if you're this type, you should reach out to me. So, this is a way that a lot of people find out about Myers-Briggs because they're interested in dating. And then they see it on other people's dating profiles and they get interested and say, what's this? Right? So I don't know. Do your own exploration. Your mileage may vary. Your results may vary. But I would just say that as long as you don't take it too seriously if you're kind of skeptical, but look at it as a way to get to know yourself better and to get to know any potential partners or friends or roommates or lovers or whatever better and have a greater understanding.
I like it. We're all going to find our love chances right here, right on this show.
All right. So
I think people, one more thing though, I think that if people are trying to date, I think they should listen to our attachment episode. I think that'll be a little bit more critical information than your mind.
In terms of love, definitely.
Yeah, it all fits together. It all fits together into a grand picture. This is such an INTJ thing to say. It's all like a big puzzle for weaving together.
Awesome.
Did we have a sponsor for this show?
No, we don't have a sponsor, but I do want people to check out the Tatiana Show because I've been having some really good episodes on there. Emily Coleman from Shapeshift, we just taped something this week. She's going to come and join us. We've been putting out some good stuff, but I also wanted to remind our listeners to check out some of our older episodes. I really liked the one that we just put out with Pamela Morgan. So people can take a listen to that at proofoflovecast.com. Take a listen. And I don't know. I think that's it. Anything
all right. This show brought to you by Proof of Love previous episodes and the Tatiana Show.
Yes. And also please be sure to go to cryptomediahub.com. That's basically bankrolling everything. So I guess they're always the sponsor, right?
Yes. Brought to you by Crypto Media Hub for all your marketing and PR needs for cryptocurrency stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Man, I love you girls. And I love our audience. If you guys are listening, let us know that you're listening. Send us in some questions. Leave us a comment. Tell your friends. Like us on social media. Oh my gosh, my friend is submitting some dirty questions. So pretty soon we're going to have a Q&A.
Oh, yeah. I love dirty Q&A.
I like dirty Q&A. I like it when there's something kind of disgusting in there. It makes it a little bit more exciting. So stay tuned, guys.
Excellent. All right. So proofoflovecast.com. Send us your questions. Give us a like on social media, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Later, y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Ross Ulbricht is serving a double life sentence without parole for all nonviolent charges for creating a website. Please help free this peaceful man. Go to freeross.org and sign and share the petition.
Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. Proof of Love has been brought to you by cryptomediahub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond.